Hey Jexiteers, thanks again for stopping by. If you're new to the channel, my name is Riley and I'm a former Jehovah's Witness. And today is a very, very special video because this is the first interview that I'm doing on my channel. And today I'm going to be interviewing Sean, who's also a former Jehovah's Witness, and he's going to be telling us all his story. So Sean, thanks for coming onto the channel.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. This is very exciting. So this means I'm the very first official Jexiteer, right?
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm in the fan club.
Yeah, you're in a fan club. Also, just before we begin, I just want to say that Sean has also very, very kindly created my very first piece of fan art for my channel, which I'm using as a channel logo.
Yeah,
So,
I had a flash of inspiration, and I felt kind of nervous because it wasn't something that you asked for, you know.
Mhm.
But it's very Jehovah's Witness of me to give you something that was unsolicited, right?
Absolutely. Start as you mean to go on.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I'm really, really grateful for that, and I absolutely love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course, anytime.
Cool. Okay, so how did you come to be a Jehovah's Witness?
Well, I didn't have any choice in the matter, really. I was born in. I'm 37. I just celebrated my 37th birthday. First time celebrating a birthday. So I couldn't figure out if I should put one candle on my cake or 37. But yeah, I was born in, and my parents. I'm a little foggy on when they actually were baptized, but they were baptized in the late 70s. So they missed the whole stay alive to 75 thing.
Right.
And I don't even know how much of that was even public knowledge to a lot of the witnesses coming in at that time. But they lived in Colorado, and they were found in the door-to-door ministry. Excuse me. Actually, they were living with somebody. They had a roommate who had kind of started a study, who was basically a return visit.
Mhm.
And these pioneer brothers came to the door looking for their roommate and ended up studying with my parents.
Okay.
Yeah.
So quite a
Yeah. So then,
coincidence then.
yeah. I mean, their whole story is really interesting. You know, the way that the truth was presented to them, the truth, quote unquote. I still haven't been able to shake that, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, it takes a long time. I haven't either.
Yes. So the way it was presented to them really resonated with my dad, because he was kind of, I wouldn't say he was like a full-blown hippie, but they were definitely into more of like free spirit, maybe.
Yeah.
He just wanted to be a ski bum and grow pot and
Right.
smoke pot all day. And that's what he wanted to do with his life. And he was on that trajectory. So he said that for him, when he went to the Kingdom Hall for the first time, it was the overwhelming sense of brotherly love and no racism, because he saw people of all races together. And of course, now looking back as an ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, you realize like, oh, well, it's the love bomb, you know?
Exactly.
Right. And it's extremely powerful, even for somebody who, you know, I had been inactive at one time, and they'll love bomb you when you come back, you know?
Yeah.
And it is powerful. It really, really pulls at your heartstrings. So that was what brought them in. And then of course they had me, and there was no world outside of Jehovah's Witnesses. So I never knew anything different at all.
Right. Yeah. So as is the case with a lot of witnesses and ex-witnesses being born in, You know, as you said, you really don't have any choice in
Mhm.
becoming a Jehovah's Witness.
Mhm.
It's chose that life has been chosen for you.
Yeah,
Which is,
and there wasn't even really an acknowledgement of the world outside or any other way of living.
yeah,
It wasn't even in my mind.
yeah, yeah. And that, well, speaking as a born-in myself, that makes it so much harder to leave, because you're actually leaving into the unknown. You know, not to diminish the struggles of people who converted to Jehovah's Witness, but I can imagine that it must make a difference, knowing that, you know, coming from the world, as the witnesses say, into the religion, you at least know what you're going back to. But with a
Yeah,
born-in, you know nothing at all.
nothing. Yeah, that's funny you said that. That was actually a point of contention between my dad and I. We used to get into some debates, and I was always mad and resentful. I said, you know, you got the opportunity to choose this for yourself. And these are things that I would say, I mean, I was 15, maybe 15, 16. So to his credit, you know, there was that open dialogue, but there was never really an exit strategy. It's not like, oh, okay, well, why don't you go out and figure it out yourself and then come back and we'll be here with open arms. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
That was never an option.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So how did your JW upbringing affect your childhood, would you say?
Man, that I've been thinking about that a lot over the last few days. There's two sides to that answer. So the first side is, and I think a lot of witnesses would share this or have this in common, is I I was raised in a good environment. Like my mom was very frugal, very attentive to the things that my brother and I were interested in. And she let us explore those things as long as it was within the bounds of, you know, being a witness. We traveled. Our parents took us different places, exposed us to different cultures and excuse me, and food and music, things like that. So, you know, unfortunately, I don't have like a really juicy, juicy story. So if anybody's here to be tantalized,
Yeah.
sorry. but it. You know, we were very outdoorsy. We went backpacking. We went hiking, camping. My dad is a big fisherman. He's a fly fisherman. He ties his own flies, and he would take us fishing. So you know, we had a good childhood. I mean, overall, it was a very good and safe environment. Um, However, the other side of that coin has really reared its head now as an adult. Um, where looking back, I just think, what were you thinking? Like, why in the world would you do this to a kid? And I understand that you know, considering their background that they came from, which came from verbal, physical, sexual abuse, substance abuse, alcoholism, you know, the pendulum swung so far the other way.
Yeah.
So they basically said, you know, in order to be a good parent, we're going to provide this structure. And I really don't think that they investigated too much beyond that. It was just like, this is so different from how we were raised. Let's just stick with this. And they
Yeah.
do genuinely believe it. But as an adult, I realize just how completely hamstrung I am when it
Yeah.
comes to knowing how the world works, interpersonal relationships with strangers, with people, coworkers. And I'm an outgoing person. I'm not an awkward guy. I'm not introverted. I'm very, very you know, I'm kind of a people pleaser. I just like to mix it up with people.
Yeah.
But even now, I feel just a deep sense of embarrassment that as a 37-year-old man, I'm so stunted in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
The biggest thing that I'm resentful of, though, is the constant pruning is the only way I could describe it, is seeing creativity blossom in a child and then constantly cut it off as it starts to blossom.
Yeah.
And I'm deeply resentful of that because, you know, my profession, I'm an illustrator and graphic designer, and I also am a musician as well. And I look back and I just think I could be so much better. And it's, you know, I'm able to provide comfortable living for my family through my creativity, but it has been such an unbelievable struggle to get to this point. It was just completely unnecessary, you know? So yeah, it's a very interesting question. Because there's two sides, and really I've only experienced the ugly side after leaving and realizing, like, oh my God, I can't I can't believe I'm in this position, you know?
Yeah, I completely understand. I mean, I'm still going through that myself. One way that I describe it is like the movie Avatar, where the main character, Jake Sully, he's been separated from his group and he's out in the big wide alien world for the first time, and he doesn't know how to survive, and all of these creatures are coming and he just doesn't know what to do. And then the female character, I can't remember what her name is, she comes along and rescues him, and then she says to him, "You're like a baby." It's like, you don't know anything. And that really resonates with me. It really does a good job of explaining the whole experience of leaving the JW organization and then finding yourself in this world that you know absolutely nothing about. And then now you have to navigate it. You know, it can be very paralyzing. It does hit you how much you don't know. I mean, with other high control groups and cults that typically live physically separately from the rest of society, they know that they don't know anything about the outside world. But with the JWs, where you're close enough to the world to think you know what it's all about, but you're isolated enough to actually not realize how little you do know.
Yeah, totally. You know? I don't know if you feel the same way, but I had this sense of panic because it you know, I'm a hard worker. My wife is a very hard worker. I knew we would be okay. But the fact that I was so like living in a completely different reality, but still somehow existing in actual reality, was so spooky to me. It was so creepy, and I got this the closest, I mean, the only word I can describe it is a violation. I felt a deep sense of violation because I just could not believe that I had been so thoroughly under the spell of well, you know, another sci-fi reference would be The Matrix, like being plugged in. And for people who have not experienced this lifestyle or anything like it, it's extremely hard to describe to them what it's like and what it does to you after you wake up and you leave. And I just felt so creeped out by the whole thing.
Were there any moments in your childhood where it hit you, or you came to a sudden realization that you were different from other children?
So my very first encounter with that was in kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
And it
That
was
early
the
on.
first time, it was the first time that I ever even knew that there was something called a birthday. So this kid that was in my class, I remember like it happened yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
His mom brought in cupcakes, and his cupcake had a candle on it, and everybody else had cupcakes, but there was no decoration beyond, just the frosting.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave me a cupcake, and I didn't know. I think maybe I did know, actually, because do you remember that blue? I forget what it was called. It was a blue brochure that you were supposed to give to your teacher when you went to school.
And Jehovah's Witnesses.
There you go. Yeah. Okay.
I remember the one.
So in kindergarten, my parents had gone over that with me.
Right.
So I think I did understand, some of the rules and stuff that I had to follow. But I got my cupcake, and I knew I wasn't supposed to eat it. And I licked all of the frosting off of it, but I didn't eat the cupcake. and I was, I started crying, and and the teacher called my mom and had my mom come, because it was like just this inconsolable 5-year-old kid, and she couldn't understand why I was crying. And and I remember my mom, it was so sweet of my mom. She didn't come down on me. I mean, there was the look of disappointment, but what are you going to do to a little kid like that? I was completely crushed. I felt like I had betrayed my parents, their trust, everything. But I just remember looking at that bald cupcake with no frosting on it, just thinking like, oh my God, I'm the worst. And my mom, she told me why we don't celebrate birthdays and blah, blah, blah. But that was the first time that I knew, I'm different. And then also the Pledge of Allegiance, that was a big one.
Right.
And as a kid, I was very like by the book. I was very like, okay, this is, follow the rules, make mom and dad happy. And that was it. I mean, kindergarten, that was the start when I knew, okay, something's not right here.
Right. Your story is interesting because it's very reminiscent of the recent Caleb and Sophia video. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but Caleb was in exactly the same situation where someone in his class was having a birthday, and they offered him a cupcake, and he was just about to eat it. But he didn't. But
he wimped out.
Yeah, he
at least got the frosting.
He came home from school and was absolutely crushed and devastated. He was saying, oh, what if Jehovah doesn't want to be my friend anymore? And
I don't remember making that connection. It was more of the disappointment that my parents were going to feel. That's funny. I need to go find that now. I need to watch it.
Your story is almost identical to that.
I can't stomach it. Even the rebuttal videos for those things, I can't bring myself to watch those. They're just so manipulative.
Exactly. Yeah. Something that I find very, very triggering is just hearing the songs. Just hearing the songs. It grates against me. I can't bear it. Yeah.
They're pretty bad. I mean,
they are.
It's probably just because you have good taste in music.
So what caused you to finally start waking up? When did that happen? Tell us about that.
Well, how much time do we have, man? So the waking up, quote unquote, waking up thing is, it's a process. It's not something that just snap happens, So there was there was, I think for most people, the Australian Royal Commission was the one that really got the ball rolling. Before that, you know, there had been times when in secret I would like Google Jehovah's Witnesses, or just Google the name Jehovah and see what would come up. And that was when I had just first moved out from my parents' house and was living on my own, and I had experienced some freedom, and I just felt safe to do that. And at that point, I think I was 21 or 22, and I didn't really have any desire to leave. I didn't have, you know, it didn't intrigue me beyond just being curious. And most of the stuff that I found, I didn't agree with. Yeah, I think over time, you know, just if you care about people in general, you're going to start having doubts because of the way that you're supposed to think about worldly people. And what happens is you eventually will encounter somebody in the world that does not fit at all what a worldly person is supposed to be. And then for me, I was kind of like, like not everybody out here is sex crazy and doing drugs and all these things. And I don't know, I think it's just like a culmination of life experiences and just being around different people. But yeah, I mean, that Australian Royal Commission just like really floored me. I could not believe my eyes and ears. And it happened, I found it at a time when I was inactive, but not because of not wanting to go. It was just discouragement.
Right.
It was just, you know, I have 3 children. My wife and I were both very depressed. We weren't making any money. We were living on credit cards. Literally buying groceries with credit cards. I mean, we were just drowning in debt and responsibility, and I was at the lowest of the low. And I was up, I think it was like 2 a.m. I was up folding laundry and just going through YouTube, watching videos, and I saw Geoffrey Jackson on the stand, and I thought, oh, what is this? I couldn't turn away. I mean, how could you not? You know, you never, ever, ever see anything like that. And going into that video, I expected something completely different than what I saw, because what was so irritating about that video, aside from the lies and the sex abuse, was we had just come off, when I found it, actually, we had just come off the Be Bold, I think it was Be Courageous district convention.
Okay.
Or Be Bold.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Which I couldn't believe, because that was like the most cowardly display from our leadership that I had ever seen. Yeah. And I thought, here I am. I'm supposed to die for this religion. I'm supposed to go to jail for this religion. And this guy gave one of the weakest performances I had ever seen. And for a rank and file witness, like I'm nobody special, you know, I'm not particularly smart. It's like, but I know when I'm being duped, like I know when I'm being lied to. And even somebody who was physically in, mentally in, that just completely rocked my world. I could not believe that he said what he said about not being God's representation.
Yeah. He said that would be presumptuous to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. You think?
Yeah.
But that really got the ball rolling. But there was a period of time where we remained inactive, and then we got back. There was like this boost in morale and boost in activity. And, I really have to give the majority of the credit to my wife, who she was baptized. She used to be Pentecostal. So she studied, that's how we met.
Right.
And she always just kind of had her eyes open from the beginning. Excuse me. And she always said, this seems kind of brainwashy. And she actually didn't like showing the Caleb and Sophia videos to our kids. And the truth really got in the way of our marriage and caused a lot of fights, because there was a point in time where I was going to meetings by myself and going out in service by myself and taking the kids. And it's just a ton of work. Even for a couple that goes together, it's just a ton of work.
Yeah.
On top of the financial pressure, all the stuff that goes into it. So she kind of she played the long game. I don't think that she intended to get me out of the religion, but she just kept studying with eyes wide open and was like, no, this isn't right. And really what pushed me over the edge was one daily text and a big fight that we got into over this stupid text. It was about Job, and it was actually on her birthday, and that's the only way I can remember it. So it was about Job and his integrity. And they go in this long spiel about how, integrity is what's going to matter most to Jehovah and blah, blah, blah. And they cite the scripture. And I said, see, I don't see what your problem is. And she said, well, why don't we read it in context? So we read the chapter, and it has absolutely nothing to do with Job and his integrity. And in fact, it had everything to do with Job complaining and having somebody correct him. It wasn't even in the same ballpark of what they cherry picked and distorted. And she said, see, I've been trying to tell you. She was like, they just manipulate these things and basically count on you not doing your homework. And I had to relinquish or swallow my pride. And I just said, okay, just show me what you're talking about. And whew, man, the lid just blew off of Pandora's box after that.
Wow. So had your wife been, had she started waking up independently of you and doing her own research and, finding things out without you realizing?
No, not really. She was very vocal. She never hid anything from me, ever. Never at all. She was always honest, always forthcoming. And there was a point where she started, there's something called the Bible Project, and it's a Christian run. They're not really a church. They're basically they produce their own videos and stuff. And the guy who runs it is just an absolute nerd about the Bible. And he goes deep into Aramaic and Hebrew and all this stuff. So when you have a Bible scholar, whether you believe in the Bible or not, whether you're a Christian or not, if you have somebody coming from the place of actually knowing what they're talking about and being able to give you the cultural context behind some of the words and the way these things were put together, it turns everything on its head. It changes everything.
I can imagine so, yeah.
And the witness, their doctrine just falls apart very quickly when you get the cultural meaning of the words that were used in writing the original text. And I'm not a a Bible buff at all, and I don't continue listening to that stuff anymore. But you know, it is fascinating, and for anybody who wants to carry on as a Christian, I would say the Bible Project is a good place to start, because they take such a deep dive into the original language. But yeah, she was very, very open, didn't hide anything, and just very over. I mean, I'm telling you, there were some big fights, big fights, and our marriage almost ended several times because of the stress of all this stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm very, very pleased that it didn't, as I'm sure you are.
Yeah, you're telling me.
Yeah. So when was the make or break moment when you decided that this is it? We have to leave this organization.
It happened. So COVID shut everything down.
Yeah.
And we couldn't go to meetings. And then right after that, Memorial happened. So that was when we did Memorial at home. And that was unique. And remember, at this time, I'm still, you know, I've got my doubts, but I'm still mentally in, and physically in as much as you could be at that point. And I felt so guilty doing the memorial service at home, because I didn't feel qualified, for one. And I also felt like I'm not 100% on board with this. So to go through the routine, I felt like I was kind of lying to my kids in a way, you know, like I'm trying to establish this tradition when I'm not even 100% on board.
Yeah.
And it just, I really felt physically sick. I felt like an illness, because I took it so serious, and I just felt so bad about it. And boy, the Watchtower article that came right after that was just, we actually got up and walked out of our room. We turned off the Zoom meeting because they, I had it written down. I neglected to bring it with me. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was about the anointed and how people know if they're anointed or not.
Right.
And it was basically like,
I remember that Watchtower.
Yeah, basically like, hey, don't worry about it. If you have to ask, you're not anointed. And then they made the point of saying that there might be mental illness on the part of somebody who thinks they're anointed.
Yeah.
And I just thought, what an absolute dig at the person who is doing this thing at home, right? They're partaking. It's a special thing for them. Whether it's true or not, that's beyond what we're talking about here. It's just that how insulting.
Yeah.
But the way that they covered their tracks was unbelievable. It was like, well, doesn't that mean that you, the governing body members, shouldn't be above suspicion?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're telling everybody else, like, well, you know, could be that you're just crazy. Like, well, what sets you apart? Especially if I'm not allowed to ask, and you have just written, we're not even going to tell you. Like, if you have to ask me, that's very inappropriate, dear brother.
Yeah.
Like, that was just so insulting to me, and I'm not even, you know, I never thought I was anointed.
Yeah.
But we literally got up and walked out. We walked out of our living room, turned off the thing, and we never went back after that one. And that point just started this flood of I wasn't on JW or ExJW YouTube or apostate material yet, with the exception of I have it written down here. My beloved religion and the governing body. And I don't know if you read that book, but that was by Rolf Feruli.
I've heard of it. I haven't read it yet.
Whew,
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
that is a good
He was from
book.
Norway. Is it Norway or Sweden?
I believe so. Yeah.
One of the
Mhm.
Scandinavian countries. I think he was a circuit overseer. And
District
a,
overseer at one point.
yes, that's right. And a very educated man as well, a scholar
Mhm.
of some sorts, I believe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that one was so powerful is because even now he's still mentally in,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he makes a very sophisticated he goes to bat for the truth. I'll just put it that way, the truth. And he goes in onto why this is the one true religion, and he sets all this up, and then he just goes so hard on the governing body. And his breakdown is very, very nerdy. It's very thorough. It's incredibly dry. But if you are a witness, or if you are a PMO or POMI or whatever you are, whatever acronym applies to you, I suggest reading that book, because it's from the perspective of a guy who's still trying to make it work.
You're right. Yeah.
And even he gets it. And I corresponded with him for a little bit, and he was a very gracious guy, very, very nice. But yeah, I mean, I tried reasoning with him as much as I could. Like, you kind of made a case for why everyone should leave.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, no, I hope it'll bring about organizational change, and think it'll, top down, it'll change. And I just thought, oh man, it's so sad. But yeah, after that book, shortly, Crisis of Conscience.
Yeah.
That was one that we got, and I didn't even finish reading that. It was just too. I think I cried for like 2 months straight, just because you can't even imagine the stuff that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And how manipulated you are.
Yeah.
From day one, from the day you're born. So yeah, those two books were just the 1-2 punch. But I realize I'm taking such a long way around to answer your question. The thing that made me leave was watching the response that the witnesses had to the Australian Royal Commission, where their legal response was, well, we don't have the institutional settings that would make it appropriate for us to join this thing or whatever.
Yeah.
I was so mad at that, because there was a scripture that I found where Jesus said to his followers, he said, if there's anyone who's trying to defraud you, go ahead and let them. And by the way, give them more than what they're asking for. So essentially, they are saying, not only do we not have to follow you, the government, but we don't even really have to follow our leader, Jesus, if a whole bunch of money is on the line.
Yeah.
And I was so thoroughly disgusted.
Yeah.
And my wife and I remember the day that they had a deadline, and I remember when it came and went, and we had a big discussion about it. And we both said, like, what if they set up like a fund, like a victims fund that was a contribution box?
Yeah.
I would have gladly given money to that. If they said, okay, we'll do it, but we don't really have enough money, maybe we can get everybody to rally behind these people. Like, not only did they say no, but they took the opportunity from the community that is supposed to lift you up, and took that away from all of us, and then maligned the people that had maybe a legitimate claim by saying, this is a lie, these people are making it up. which, I mean, it's still, when I talk about it, it's still so unbelievable that they could be so calloused and I mean, evil, really. I don't have
Yeah.
another word for it. Like, it's just, when you think about, especially now that I'm a dad and have children, I mean, to think that somebody could just condone that by washing their hands of it and saying, sorry, our company, our business doesn't have the settings to help you out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It's unconscionable.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, I saw that the leadership is morally bankrupt, completely and morally bankrupt. And I didn't want to have my name attached to it in any way at all.
So, how did you end up leaving? Did you formally disassociate, or did you and your wife fade from the organization?
So it got so ugly.
Wow.
It got very ugly because I was threatened by my father, who, just to give you a little background on him, he is basically the equivalent of a Jehovah's Witness rock star.
Wow. Okay.
He would do the regional convention. He was the overseer for regional conventions. So, I got to go to dinner with governing body members. I got to meet Bethel speakers. I got to meet anybody you would want to meet. There's a whole world that is behind the scenes at a regional convention that most people don't even know exists. And I got to go back there, and you meet a lot of interesting people. But basically, my dad he's a very, very high up. So he's also a very controlled person, very emotionally controlled person. And I had a lot, almost like a fear of my dad, like a fear of disapproval from him. And I went over to his house one night, and very uncharacteristically of him, he kind of launched into this attack, because at the time, right as all this was happening, my wife and I were preparing to move from California to Texas, where we are now.
Okay.
And he said, he he threatened me by saying, if you and Megan, that's my wife's name, if you and Megan decide to fade, like if you just stop going to meetings and remain inactive, your mother and I will treat you as if you're disfellowshipped. Wow. But I want you to know that I will continue to have access to my grandchildren. Nothing will stop that. And he pounded the table, he pounded the counter. And I've never, ever in all my years seen my dad do anything like that.
Wow.
And I know that he knew something was happening, because we kind of fell off the radar. Like, we just kind of stopped coming around. And we kind of couldn't either, because COVID was like really exploding here in the States. So that, it was limited. And I felt like it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction from him, where he was scared, like, you guys are going to move away and I'll never see you again. And it was like this threatening, you better stay in so that I can continue to have a relationship. And it was just so bizarre, but so deeply hurtful, because it was just completely disrespectful.
Yeah.
Like, you showed absolutely no respect for me as a father.
No,
like,
none whatsoever. Yeah.
How do you think that's going to work? You're going to shun me, but you're somehow going to have unrestricted access to your grandkids? Like, what? Like, I'm just going to, roll over and relinquish control to you and say, yeah, you know what, Dad, I'm a piece of shit. And you can just have you can just indoctrinate my kids.
Mm.
I was so offended. I was so offended. And from that point forward, it became an all-out war between my dad and I over doctrinal issues, all sorts of stuff, which as it stands, where it left off with my dad is he said, you know, I want you to pray and ask Jehovah for Holy Spirit, and I am confident that he will give you the answer to your prayers about this organization. And I said, okay, fair enough. That's a fair challenge. So I'll pray about this. I'll see if my questions can be answered, and we'll see what Jehovah comes back with. So I did it. And I don't know if you're familiar with this article. If you're not, hang on to your seat. But it's the July 2009 Awake, page 28 and 29.
Okay.
It basically poses the question. It says, does study of the Bible lead to family breakup? And they print this out. They ask the question, if you study the Bible with Jehovah's Witnesses, will your family break up? And they say, no, they won't break up. In fact, the Bible encourages people to stay together. Having already been disfellowshipped once when I was in my early 20s, staring down the barrel of a gun now, you know, possibly being disfellowshipped again for apostasy, I immediately burst into tears and yelled at my computer. I know it sounds horribly dramatic, but I yelled at my computer. I just was like, that is a fucking lie. Like, that is not true. And I can't believe that they would even say that, because the study of the Bible is what makes a person shun their family.
Exactly.
They force feed you that crap. They force feed it to you and use these scriptures to perpetuate this thing that they do. Of course, study of the Bible leads to family breakup. And I remember this one guy that I studied with. He wasn't my Bible study, but he was somebody that I went with this other brother regularly. And his marriage ended over studying with witnesses. His wife left him. She said, if you get baptized, I'm going to leave you. Sure enough, she did. He got baptized, remarried. But I could not believe just the brazen, like the balls on these guys to print something so blatantly false.
Exactly. I mean, I had a similar reaction to you when I saw David Gnam, who's a Canadian lawyer for the organization. He stood up in court and said that when a person's disfellowshipped, normal family relations continue.
I remember that one. Really?
Yeah. The shunning is only to do with spiritual things. It's only spiritual fellowship, but normal family relationships continue. I mean, to anyone who's being shunned by immediate witness family, myself included, what an absolute insult. What an insult, you know, and a barefaced lie.
Yeah, I I had that visceral reaction because I don't know if I'm sure you can kind of tap into those emotions from when you were freshly disfellowshipped. But I remember the first time I was disfellowshipped, I felt like a ghost. I felt like an empty husk. And the day that I got disfellowshipped, I remember going to the grocery store and walking around and felt like nobody could see me, like people just saw through me. And it's an awful feeling. It's such an awful feeling. And for them to print that just was such a slap in the face.
Yeah.
And so to come full circle, remember the whole challenge was pray to Jehovah, ask for Holy Spirit, study, and see what you get. So I came back, and my dad loved to quote scripture to me, and he wasn't being condescending. I think he was trying to be genuinely encouraging. But he used the scripture where it said, what son would ask his father for an egg and his father would give him a scorpion or something, or a fish and the dad gives him a serpent.
Yeah.
So I posed the question after showing my dad the article. I said, look, I found this. This isn't even that old. This is 2009. And this is, it was during my own disfellowshipping back in 2009 that they published that. And I said, so tell me, this is all the answer I need. What do you think? Did Jehovah hand me a fish or a scorpion? Because I prayed and I asked for Holy Spirit and I studied what you told me to study, and this is what I got. And I never got a response from him.
I can't say I'm surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I posed the same question to my brother, like 4 or 5 different people, and none of them gave me an answer. None of them could answer it. And my brother gave a very good attempt. He said, well, you know, that was printed in an awake. And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, that's meant for the public. And I was like,
wow.
And I said, well, what's your point, man? And he said, well, you know, that's for them. And I was like, so it's okay to lie to them? And then of course, you know, he started backpedaling. Well, no, it's not a lie. It's like, well, yeah, it is, because when you study with people, you don't tell them that their wives or their kids are going to leave them or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's just, that was probably the scariest thing is the lead up to disassociating and trying to have these conversations with people, and you just are met with this stone face robotic.
Yeah,
it's so bizarre. It is so bizarre.
It's like a mental security system that just like locks everything down.
Yeah, little sparks come out of the ears. And, it was I mean, to my brother's credit, he talked to me the most. And I miss him a lot. And we were pretty close. And he tried. I mean, I give him credit. He tried. But eventually you back somebody into a corner and they don't know how to answer your questions anymore. And the response is anger. And I can say that because I used to do the same thing to my wife. And she was like, you know, I know it's very easy for you to be mad at your parents and mad at your brother, but you used to get very, very angry with me because you just didn't know how to respond to this stuff. So, you know, distance now has given me time to heal, and I'm not really as upset with them as much, because I am able now to look back and see when I've done the same thing to the people closest to me, which would be, you know, my wife, and other friends. But yeah, I mean, that was the turning. There was no return.
Right.
After reading that article, coupled with what I saw in the Australian Royal Commission, there was just no turning back.
So after that, you and your wife disassociated?
Yeah, so I got freaked out because my service overseer was texting me a lot. And he was asking for my time. And now, No, time was always something that was a point of contention for me, because I thought it was wrong. I just thought it was terribly wrong.
Yeah.
So I also didn't want to have the stink of being inactive on me. So it was like, I guess I have to play by the rules for something I don't respect. But
yeah,
anyway, he kept asking me about my time. And then I had another elder who was brand new to our hall. I didn't even know him. He started texting me, and I knew immediately what was happening, because I had already been vocal with my doubts to a few people. And the two elders, both texting me at different points, I thought, okay, they're feeling us out. And I refused to go through the disfellowshipping thing again.
Yeah.
Like it became one of those, oh yeah, well, you can't fire me because I quit. It was one of those one of those things, you know.
Yeah.
It was kind of a prideful, like, well, I'll take myself out before you can have the gratification of doing it yourself. But yeah, it was an integrity thing on both of our parts, because I really couldn't live with myself if I tried to ignore those things, because that's really what you would have to do in order to make it. You would have to ignore it, lie to yourself, and pretend and lead a double life, which is extremely hard to maintain. And you know, we would just lose self-respect and respect for each other. And my wife is, I mean, she's a real one. She's as real as they come. And there was just no way that we would be able to stay married. And we just have too much invested in our family and in each other. So it was, it was a leap of faith. But I mean, I called my closest friends sobbing and pleading with them to listen. And I had one, to his credit, I had one friend. He basically said, I'm sorry that you feel this way. I love you. And all these things you say are making sense. But I have to stay. And he basically said goodbye. And that was rough. And my very best friend, who was like my brother, and I really mean it, the guy was like my brother. His goodbye to me was probably the most painful, because I was so vulnerable with him. And he ratted me out. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. I mean, to have somebody bare their soul and just, I mean, I was sobbing like a baby with him on the phone. And just for him to rat me out as an apostate, not just, hey, go check on my friend Sean, not to say, oh, he's in need of encouragement. It was, hey, this guy's spouting some nonsense, go get him. That one really, that hurts. That one gets me still.
So how long has it been since you disassociated?
So we wrote our letter in July. I believe we turned it in July. Yeah, I might have been July 1st.
Right. Of 2020. Right. Okay. So still very recent.
Yeah, very recent.
Yeah. And of course, there's going to be, you know, a huge sense of loss after doing that, you know, friends and family. But besides that, how do you feel about everything now that you're, you know, no longer a Jehovah's Witness?
It's funny. You experience these waves, these huge sweeping waves of like super high and crushing low, and they come when it's early, they come very, very fast. And you're on just this emotional roller coaster, because you're dealing with the trauma of leaving all you've known. You're dealing with the trauma of people no longer speaking to you. And you know, when you disassociate, you know what they say about you. It's much different than if you're disfellowshipped. You know, that's people still hold out hope for you.
Yeah.
But when you disassociate, you're pretty much the worst of the worst at that point. And the pain involved of knowing that you've been lied to, everything that you've believed in has been a lie, all of the opportunities that you've missed out on. You know, I told you early on I was a musician. My brother and I were in a band, and we had a recording contract sent to us.
Oh, wow. And
we passed on it. And I mean, looking back now, it was a very bad contract. And I'm glad we didn't take it. Financially, it would have destroyed us.
Oh, wow.
But still, you know, that was like my dream, you know, to play and tour. And that's what makes me happy. And I look back and think all that time, you know, we could have really done something.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with that, right?
Yeah.
You're dealing with all of these past things, and they come flooding in. It's not a gradual thing. It's just like all of these things come crashing down on you so fast and hard that you can't begin to deal with it. You know, you just can't even know where to start.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, now that we're out and it's been a while, I feel really good. I feel really, really good about our decision. It's funny. So your Christmas and my Christmas paralleled each other,
Right.
because I celebrated my first Christmas this year.
Right.
So we had the tree, we had the lights and the presents.
Yeah, I remember seeing your photos. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and we just blew it out for the kids. And it was great. It was great. So you know, there's things that, like, while you're still in so much pain, there's still so many cool things happening at the same time. You know, I'm in therapy twice a month. I knew that was something I needed anyway, but now especially so, just to unpack everything that's happened. And this is a therapist who specializes in people leaving high control groups.
Oh, excellent.
So yeah, it wasn't enough for me to just find a therapist. I wanted to find somebody who knew what it was like, because it's such a truly unique experience to be raised in that environment, but then also leave and experience the consequences that come from that. I would imagine there's few people that understand what that's like. Or maybe not. I mean, the ExJW community is pretty big and continues to grow. But yeah, I feel wonderful. I mean, it's weird, you know, watching your videos. There's so much that resonates with me, because, you know, I had a triggering moment when I saw the morons that stormed our Capitol here in you know, the QAnon conspiracy theorist people. So that kind of stuff, you immediately think, oh, the image, you know, the toes, the iron and clay.
Yeah, iron and clay. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And you get spooked You know, for
Mhm.
some people it's Armageddon. I did have some terrible nightmares when we first moved here. I just was not sleeping at all.
Mhm. Mm.
I was taking naps throughout the day, but you know, as far as like going to bed, that just was non-existent because I was having terrible nightmares about Armageddon, about confronting my parents in my dreams.
Yeah.
Uh, it was truly awful. It was awful. Um, but yeah, I mean, we've made some friends out here. Um, we've gotten involved in. I mean, we've dove pretty hard into work to keep us busy, um, and you know, making sure that the environment for the kids is safe and stable, and we do
Mhm.
fun things with them because it was traumatic for them too. So my
Yeah, I'm sure.
my goal as a dad, you know, you kind of get into that protector role, and it
Mhm.
like you put all your feelings on the back burner to make sure that they're okay. Um, so you know, it's just this onion that continues to peel and peel and peel and peel and peel, and
Yeah.
it seems like there's no end in sight. I'm genuinely surprised by the things that trigger me or I think of on a daily basis when I think I'm over it.
Yeah.
Just little things, you know, very
Yeah.
very strange little things will set you off.
Yeah. 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 I completely understand. I have similar experiences. I mean, one of the really cool things that hit me immediately after leaving the organization was how much free time I had on my hands.
Oh yeah,
That
man.
was like that was the most obvious really good thing. The most obvious upside about no longer being a Jehovah's Witness was the amount of free time I had on my hands. And even up until today, ever since, you know, no longer being a witness, every Saturday morning I spend at least 2 hours in bed watching cartoons. All the
Yeah.
cartoons, all
Yeah.
the 80s and 90s cartoons that
Yeah.
I didn't get to watch on a Saturday morning because I was out on the ministry.
Right.
That's what I do now, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the things that you really enjoy doing now that you couldn't do when you were a witness?
Oh man. Um yeah, I do that too. The weekends are just I do whatever the heck I want
Yeah,
on the
that's a good
weekends, you know.
answer. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, um, lately we've been so I just bought bikes for my wife and I because the kids already had bikes, so we've
Mhm.
been biking as a family. Um, you know, I've got a lot of nice music equipment, so getting into back into music and producing and not feeling guilty about how much time goes into it.
Mm.
Um, I kind of thought like that part of my life was over, but I got my very first paid um, music production gig a few weeks ago. It was very small, but it was just that boost, that
Yeah.
like validating boost of like, hey, your life's not over. You know,
Mhm.
like all of these interests that you have are still there. You can still do something with them. Um, but yeah, I mean, lots of video games, lots of
Yeah.
TV, lots of movies.
That's excellent.
Uh, yeah, yeah. I've noticed that I feel I don't know if you felt this way too. It's so stupid that we're like grown men and we feel this way, but you know, watching a rated R movie and
Yeah.
like on my phone in my bed, like does anybody, you know,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
it's like nobody cares.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, just little personal victories like that, you
Mm.
know.
Mm.
Um, just not feeling ashamed or feel like I have to hide
Yeah.
anything. Um, but yeah, what so I've been reading a lot. I've been reading, that's another thing, reading whatever I want to read,
Yeah.
not having to study the Bible. just learning more about what makes me tick and why, and being okay with that, like accepting, because I know I mentioned early on, like all of the things that I wanted to do, I was told you can't do because it will take you further from God. It'll take you further from the truth, or it's some self-aggrandizing thing. And yeah, just exploring like my own personal taste in things has been really fun. Understanding why I like what I like. It's just, yeah, this year I decided like 2021 is going to be the year of exploration, not just for me, but for the whole family. Just, my daughter said, I want to do karate. And I said, that's great. I've always wanted to do karate. But my parents said, well, you're going to grow up to be an assassin or something. So no, Dad doesn't like violence. Hey, I kid you not. Let me give you this story. Okay. So you mentioned cartoons.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just curious, which cartoons were you not able to watch or not allowed to watch because of the content? Was there any like that?
Thundercats, although I used to sneak and watch it anyway. Because of the Sword of Omens, and that was like my mum thought it had something to do with like the Omen movies with Damien and 666 and whatever.
Not even in the same universe.
I know, right? Yeah, so Thundercats, He-Man, all the best ones basically.
Of course.
Right, yeah.
Of course. So my parents
the Smurfs, obviously all JWs know about the Smurfs.
Of course, of course. Yeah, after this I'm curious to know what your best Smurf story is. But so there was when I was little, it was at the height of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Right.
And I wanted a Donatello Ninja Turtle so bad. I wanted nothing more in the whole world than to have Donatello. And my parents, they said, now, Sean, we've been discussing this. Your father and I have been discussing this and praying about this. And we decided that we're not going to allow you to have a Ninja Turtle, but we want you to understand why. So I was like 5 or 6, right? And they say, now here's a dictionary. We want you to look up the word ninja in the dictionary. So I did at like 6 or 7. I was like, okay. So I look it up and I'm like, yeah, ninja is an assassin. And they're like, do you know what an assassin is? I said, no. Well, why don't you look up an assassin? So then I'm, go back to look it up, and it's somebody that kills somebody, right? And they were like, well, now do you think Jehovah would like that? An assassin, you playing with somebody who kills somebody? And as a kid, I remember thinking, like, have you guys seen the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Like, have you even bothered to look at these guys or watch a single episode? Like, you put all of your energy into the wrong homework. If you had just watched an episode, these guys are way more concerned with eating pizza than they are with ever using their weapons on anybody, So that was like my first defeat as a child, was no ninja. And by that time, you're flipping through the dictionary and you're just like, forget it. I don't even care. I don't even care anymore. Like, you win. But yeah, the Smurfs, that was a big one. There was tons of stories of Smurfs getting up and walking out of a kingdom hall.
Yeah. I have not spoken to an ex-witness who has not heard a Smurf story.
Yeah.
Of a Smurf, a toy Smurf coming to life and, running around or whatever,
Yeah.
I think that there's so many, there's so many different variations, but I don't know what it is. Witnesses have a bee in their bonnet about Smurfs.
It was, I think it was the guy,
Gargamel.
Yeah. So he was a wizard.
Yeah.
And that was about it. I mean, the Smurfs themselves didn't have any magic in them from what I remember, but
no.
I mean, I never watched him, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, man, there was all sorts of stupid things. You know what was crazy? And I gave my parents crap about this later in life. I said, you guys didn't let me have Ninja Turtles, but you let me have X-Men, and I had multiple figures of Wolverine.
Yeah,
you know, the guy
his
has
claws. Yeah,
the claw, like concessions have to be made, I guess.
yeah. I remember one time there was a brother in our congregation who was also a plumber, and he was at our house doing some work in our bathroom. And I was watching a cartoon movie called the BFG, the Big Friendly Giant. And he actually said something to my parents that said, "Oh, the kids shouldn't be watching that. It's about giants." And we were like, "What's wrong with giants?" And he's like, "Well, where did giants come from in the Bible?"
Oh my God.
And he was like,
I know where this is going.
So the giants in the Bible, they were the sons of demons. So whenever you see anything that's got giants in it, it's demonic.
Oh my God.
And
The
then
Nephilim.
the Nephilim. So my mum was like, "Wow, yeah, I never thought of that. Turn that off right now."
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah, they invent things to be afraid of.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you give so much power over to these things that it's complete nonsense, you know. But yeah, that's we've actually gotten pretty lenient. Well, I shouldn't say lenient. I mean, we're still very careful about what we let the kids watch and play with and stuff like that. They're not violent at all, but you know, I'm much more lax on this stuff than my parents were, for sure.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to anybody who's preemie but has doubts? What advice would you, based on your experience, what advice would you give to someone like that?
Yeah, I would say take it slow. Because it's almost impossible, though, really, because once you start having your eyes open to this stuff, you become insatiable. And I mean, once I found ExJW YouTube, it was game over. I mean, I consumed it all day, every day.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the channel, there were several channels that meant the most to me. The first one that I ever encountered outside of the Australian Royal Commission was Lloyd Evans, which no surprise there. But it was the Tight Pants Tony video.
Yeah.
And I laughed so much at that video because you're supposed to just take everything that these guys say as gospel, basically, you know. And my wife and I were inactive, and we had missed that convention, so that was all new to me. Like, I had never seen any of it. And when I saw that, I had to test it out. I was like, okay, I know that apostates are liars, so I need to find out if this thing has been doctored in any way. So I asked my parents about it. I was like, hey, did Tony Morris say this? And my mom kind of rolled her eyes, and she was like, yeah, he did. There was a lot of angry people at that convention that day.
Wow.
And so when she confirmed, I was like, oh, wow, maybe there's something to this. Like, so I watched a few more of Lloyd's videos, and his approach to it, I think if he hadn't had been sarcastic, I probably wouldn't have given him the time of day. But he just has such a dry sense of humor. It made it so funny to engage with, you know?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, that is ridiculous. But if you're physically and mentally in, honestly, the most powerful for me was the ExJW Critical Thinker channel.
Right.
Because JT, I swear to you, I have met I haven't met him, but I've met that brother before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
I know that guy. I
Yeah.
have spent time with that guy, and he still has some of the inflections in his voice that are kind of native to the way witnesses talk. So there's a sense of familiarity and comfort that goes with that, because the thing I like about him is, like, he kind of has this, like, come at me bro kind of stance with it.
Yeah.
It's the truth.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to defend it beyond this, because it just is what it is. And he had some very in-depth and interesting behind the scenes stuff about the way money is handled that I actually, like, I knew to be true. And when he revealed that stuff, I was like, oh wow, this guy isn't just he's not malicious. Like, he actually knows what he's talking about. He knows the ins and outs. But yeah, I mean, just take it slow if you can. And whatever doubt it is that you have, I promise you there's an answer for that, and it will branch off into a dozen or 2 dozen different more things, and each one of those branch off into their own direction. But I just feel like I can't overstate this enough. Just please take care of yourself emotionally and mentally, because you are going to go for a ride when you start investigating your doubts, and you'll be fine. You'll be okay. You might lose everything in the process, but you'll be okay. You know, there's beautiful people on the other side that are nice, and you know, we have found people in our neighborhood that have accepted us in to their homes, socially distanced, of course. We're not being irresponsible, but I mean, my faith in humanity has been restored just based on some of the people that we've met here. But yeah, it's not the truth. Jehovah's Witnesses do not have a monopoly on the truth. It's a corporation, and it is run like a corporation. And just like any good corporation, they are going to protect their assets, and that means you, the publisher, are expendable. And you're working for free, so they don't have to care. And what's even crazier is not only are you expendable, but they will then use you as ammunition, even after you're gone. Even after you can't talk to anybody. It's incredible.
I mean, it even goes beyond that. I mean, I think actually the second channel, when I was waking up, the second channel that I binged watched was Irregular Pioneer. And there was one.
I like that.
There was one. So the guy who runs the channel, his name is Matt. He's a former elder from New York. And there was one video that he done that was all about Jehovah's Witness funerals. And one thing that he said that stuck out to me, and I will never ever forget, he was saying how the funerals are basically just a recruiting drive for new members. If you look, I mean, I've given a couple of funeral talks myself, and the guidelines for funeral talks, it's like that much about saying how good it is to be in the truth, and about that much for speaking about the actual deceased. And then he said, even when you are dead, the Watchtower organization will continue to use you. Even your death. Not only do they co-opt your entire life, they even co-opt your death. Even after you've died, you continue serving Watchtower's purposes. And I was just like, wow.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I one of my good friends, his mother passed a few months before we left, and I went to her funeral, and my dad gave her talk. And I have to say, my dad did a phenomenal job. Even though I don't agree with any of the stuff he said anymore, he did do a really good job. But at the end, they always bring it back around to the Bible study.
Yeah.
And there was a table that had Bible teach books out in the back.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a first. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There was a few other like when you I think it was when you came in, I can't remember what side. It was a double Kingdom Hall. And they had, and I'd seen this at one other Kingdom Hall before, but they had, I mean, I was going to say tasteful, but it's completely tasteless that they would put it out anyway. But it wasn't like they had a cart set up back there with the brother attending it. But
oh no!
Oh well, welcome, brother. Yeah, yeah. But they had literature back there.
Yeah.
And I thought, I was still kind of mentally in at the time, and I thought, oh, isn't that sweet? But yeah, it's true. They do use it as a recruiting tool. Absolutely. Yeah. What has really been on my mind lately are the numbers and how important numbers are to witnesses. So if you're physically in and mentally in, you should just do a little experiment with numbers. And one of those things is you don't even have to watch a video. Don't watch any of them. Just look at the ExJW content that is being produced, and look at how many subscribers these people have. Look at how many views these videos have. Look at how many likes, confirmed likes that these have. And if you want to get scientific with it or mathematical, you can average them out and find out on an average how many likes, how many streams, how many subscribers do these JW YouTube people have. What you will find is that the numbers, even at the low end, even at the very low end, are far higher than any numbers you produce as a publisher. Now, that doesn't mean, you can auxiliary pioneer, you can put in 100 hours a month, whatever. The hours don't mean a damn thing when you think about how effective they are.
Yeah.
So here we have, for instance, you have some videos on your channel that are way up there. Think about when you and I were both going out in service. How many times could you go knock on a door and get a confirmed, hey, thanks. I like that.
Yeah. Not very often.
Yeah, almost never. And I think
absolutely.
I studied with two people to the point of baptism. And I deeply regret it now. I wish I could call them up and tell them to leave. But two people in 36 years.
Yeah.
And you have somebody that from the comfort of their own home can make a YouTube channel, get, like I said, on the low end, you hit like 100 subscribers. That means you have 100 people confirmed that they want to hear more.
Yeah.
And then, I was looking at some of them are in the tens of thousands.
Oh yeah.
One person, tens of thousands, and then they have maybe a whole catalog of videos. If you make it all about the numbers, you fail so fast as a publisher. And then you'll hear the argument, oh well, we spent like 100 billion hours out in the ministry, or whatever ridiculous number they throw out there. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was a pioneer, I spent a lot of time screwing around out in service.
The pioneer walk.
Oh man, and you better believe I counted those hours, man.
Yeah.
So there was this one other guy we would pioneer, and there was this place called John's Incredible Pizza, and it was a chain, and for $20 they would let you in. It was massive. It like had an arcade, and it was just all you could eat pizza. So for $20 we'd go in and we would load up on pizza, and we're in our suit and tie.
Yeah.
And we would literally fall asleep in the booths. we would gorge ourselves on pizza, because we would do like early morning witnessing, and then we would be out all day. We would just load up on pizza, fall asleep in the booths, wake up, get some more pizza, hit the road, go do some evening witnessing. But in that time, it's like, yeah, we're in a suit and tie. We'll count that. Yeah. And before I left, one of the last days out in service, I was with an elder, and one of the things that we were doing that day out in service was going and spying on the people who had the carts set up, because our congregation got complaints that they thought that these people were homeless. They were setting up their carts, and they would bring a cooler, and they would sit in a lawn chair behind the cart, and would be all bundled up in these like blankets.
Wow.
And they would have these like thick knit caps on.
Yeah.
And they would like set up out in front of a gas station, like just a regular old gas station.
Mm-hmm.
So we were getting complaints that they were like, who are these people? Like, do they represent your organization? Like, are these your people? Did they steal this cart and they're trying to like sell this stuff? Like, what's going on? And so that was a day in service. Now, I'm not saying that happens all the time. And I know that there's like wonderful success with the cart witnessing, but just think about the people that are turning in this time. So now you have like people sitting at a cart, people walking in are like, what is going on here? Like, who are these people? Yeah, you might be counting that time, but are you giving a good witness? What is the effect that this is having? You know, you don't get the same kind of feedback that you do on social media, YouTube, where people are saying, yeah, I like this, I want more.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not the same. You can't even compare the two.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, like with my own YouTube channel, from the very first video that I uploaded, I have felt infinitely more zeal and enthusiasm towards doing that than I ever did for one day going out in the ministry.
Yeah, I have to pay you a compliment. It really, really shows. It absolutely shows. Because I binged your channel on my drive from California to Texas.
Oh wow.
So
that's a long drive.
It's a very long drive. There's a lot of thinking to be done on that drive, especially it's all desert, going through New Mexico, and there's just nothing to look at. You're just alone with your thoughts. And I was, one thing that I appreciated the most about your channel was it gave me a sense of calm. Like, even though you would address things that were really painful, it gave me a sense of calm, because some YouTubers are very fired up, and their content is very spicy.
yeah, to say the least.
And sometimes you need that. Like I watch Coach D, I forget what.
Coach D3.
Yeah. She's very spicy.
She's very.
And I like that.
That's one of my favorite channels, actually.
Yeah, mine too. I like watching her, but sometimes if you're in a painful spot, sometimes that can kind of have the opposite effect of what you're going for. But that was one thing, if I can pay you a compliment, was it felt like a safe haven, or a friend and a brother, because that's what we called each other, you know? And that was one thing that just really broke my heart, was the sense of community that was lost. And that was one thing that I always loved about circuit assemblies in particular, was just giving people a hug, people that you don't even know that well, but you had this one thing in common, and you knew that it was hard for them and they know it's hard for you, and you have that bond. And those bonds are broken, but you can still kind of get it through other YouTubers, you know? The only difference is it's not considered appropriate to just like reach out to somebody cold and be like, hey brother, great video you did there, I was really encouraged by it, you know? That doesn't happen, you know? It's like
I love your JW voice.
Oh man, can I tell you about this guy? It's based on an actual person. It's based on this guy, you know, I'm not going to say his name, not that he would watch this, but he's a sweet guy. He's an older brother, and he spoke in only witness gibberish. So when he would comment, it was like I called it the theocratic stream of consciousness. So, and you knew when they called on this guy, you're like, oh, buckle up, this guy's gonna take us for a ride. And he would say everything that he's ever heard all in one comment. So they'd be like, and now what does this teach us about the Holy Spirit? And he'd raise his hand. And of course, nobody else has their hand raised, so you got to call on him. And he's like, yes. So what I find encouraging about this is that what the Holy Spirit does for us is makes us a beacon of light in a darkened world, so as to become those that bring people to the chariot of God, so that we can continue to keep up and learn and encourage others in this darkened world. Like, just he would just go on this spiel, this tangent, and sometimes we'd just be like looking around like, what is he talking about? So that's how you do it. You go in, you fake it. If you're Pimo and you want to fake it, you just talk like that and you're fine. Nobody will ever know.
Oh, that's hilarious. Sean, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for sharing your story with me and with my viewers as well. I really, really do appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a huge privilege.
And I have to thank you again for the design of my Jexit logo.
Oh yeah,
I absolutely love it. It's fantastic. Do you have like a portfolio of your design work that you'd like to plug? Yeah, go ahead.
Whoa, I get to plug right on. Yeah, if anybody wants to see what I do for work, you can go to SeanGregoryMiller.com. So SEAN GregoryMiller.com, and that'll take you to my illustration and design work. And I think I have a link to my Spotify where I've done music. I work for a company, but I also freelance and do anything from comic book illustration to logo design to marketing materials, music production for YouTube videos, you name it. I do all kinds of stuff.
Excellent. Great. It's good to see you following your passions.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot. It's been a journey.
Yeah. I wish you all the best with everything that you're doing and everything that you want to achieve.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Like I said, 2021, I feel like this is the year. Excellent.
Cool. So thank you once again, and thank you, Jexiteers, for watching. I'm really, really pleased with this interview, and it will be the first of many. So stay tuned and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell as well. so that you'll be alerted to all of my future updates. So thanks again for watching, and see you in the next one.